The city's wealthiest woman fell in love with a poor black fisherman, without him ever knowing her true identity. Victoria had not slept properly in 3 years. She would wake up at 4 in the morning, lie on her back, staring at the ceiling of her penthouse, and listen to the city below her. The honking, the generators, the faint sound of music from somewhere far away. Accra was always awake, always moving. But up here, sealed behind glass and silence and money, she felt completely still, like a painting on a wall, something to be looked at, not touched. She was 41 years old. She ran a company worth over $2 billion. She had a staff of hundreds, a board of directors who called her Madam with careful respect, a wardrobe that had been featured in 3 magazines, and a brother who phoned her every time he needed a signature on something. What she did not have was a single person who asked how she was doing and actually waited for the answer. Her husband Emmanuel had died 5 years before, heart attack, gone before the ambulance arrived. With him went the only person who had ever called her by the nickname he gave her, Vicky. Everyone else said Victoria, or Madam, or CEO. Nobody said Vicky anymore. Nobody even knew that name existed. Her therapist, a calm woman she had been seeing for 18 months, gave her a simple instruction one Tuesday afternoon. Not medication, not journaling, just this. 1 morning a week, go somewhere ordinary. Leave the driver at home. Leave the phone meetings behind. Sit somewhere regular people sit, and just be there. Victoria chose the beach. She drove herself to Cockrebite on a Saturday morning in a plain car, and sat on a plastic chair in simple clothes, and felt completely out of place. She had not done anything this ordinary in 20 years. She watched the fishermen drag their boats up the sand, and she drank tea from a roadside stall, and she thought, "What am I doing here?" Then one man walked past her with a rope over his shoulder, and she watched him. He was not doing anything special. He was coiling a rope, slowly, the way someone coils a rope when they are not in a hurry and have no reason to pretend otherwise. He had a calm about him that was not performed. It was not the calm of someone meditating or trying to appear relaxed. It was the calm of someone who had simply made peace with his life and found it acceptable. He noticed her noticing him. He did not smile in the way men smile when they want something. He just gave a small nod, one human being to another, and kept walking. She came back the next Saturday, and the one after that. On her 4th visit, he was walking past again when he said, without stopping, "The sea was kind today." He said it the way someone says good morning, not as an invitation, just as a fact. She said, "How can you tell?" He stopped then. He looked at her as if he had not expected her to answer. "The color," he said. "When it is dark blue and the gulls fly low, she is in a good mood." She laughed. It came out of her before she could manage it. A real laugh, not the polite kind she gave at board meetings. She could not remember the last time she had laughed like that. She told him her name was Vicky. Not Victoria, not Madam, Vicky. The name felt strange in her own mouth, like wearing old clothes she had almost forgotten she owned. He said his name was Kwame. He said it simply, and offered his hand, and she shook it. His hand was rough from work and salt and rope. Her hand was moisturized and soft from a life spent in offices. Neither of them commented on this. "I'm learning the beach," she said. "It takes time," he said, "but she rewards patience." He was talking about the sea. She knew that. But it settled into her the way some sentences do, finding more than one meaning on the way down. The Saturdays kept coming. She stopped counting them. Kwame thought she was a regular city woman, a nurse maybe, or a teacher, or perhaps a government clerk who needed the weekend air. She dressed simply on purpose. She paid for her own tea. She never took calls in front of him. She asked questions about the ocean with genuine curiosity. What fish came in which season, how the tides behaved, why some boats went further than others. And she wrote notes in a small book he found quietly amusing. He spoke to her the way he spoke to very few people, open, honest, unhurried. He told her about his mother, who had taught him to read the water before he could read words. He told her about his 12-year-old son, Kofi, who loved football and hated early mornings, and had his mother's stubborn eyes. He told her about the dry season months, when the fish were scarce, and he ate less, so that Kofi's plate stayed full. She listened. She did not offer solutions. She did not pull out a checkbook or make suggestions. She just listened, something she had almost completely forgotten how to do. Somewhere between his stories and the sound of the water, she realized what was happening to her. She was falling in love with this man, not the dramatic, crashing kind of love from films, the quiet kind, the kind that arrives slowly, like a tide, and by the time you notice it, your feet are already wet. Her assistant, Adwoa, the only person she trusted completely, found out when Victoria came home one Saturday, with sand on her shoes, and something different in her eyes. "You have to tell him who you are," Adwoa said that evening, setting tea in front of her in the kitchen. "The longer you wait, the harder it becomes." "I have not lied to him," Victoria said. "You have not corrected him. That is the same thing, madam." Victoria looked out the window at the city she owned a significant piece of. "When he looks at me, Adwoa, he sees a person, not a company, not a net worth, not a headline, just a person. Do you know how long it has been since someone looked at me that way?" Adwoa had no good answer for that. But she also knew about Victoria's brother, Nana. She had heard him at family gatherings, talking about family image, talking about association and reputation. Nana was the kind of man who would find a way to end something like this before it could begin properly. One morning, Kwame arrived at the beach distracted. He sat beside her on the sand and was quiet in a different way. Not his usual peaceful quiet, but a heavy one. "It is Kofi's school fees," he said finally, when she asked. "They are due Friday. I am short." He said it without drama, without self-pity. The way an honest man states a true thing. Victoria nodded. She said nothing about it then. That afternoon she called Adwoa and asked her to process an anonymous transfer through a charitable trust they managed, one that had paid school fees in low-income communities for years, completely untraceable. She made sure of it. She did not tell Kwame. The following Saturday, he was smiling before she even sat down. "A miracle, Vicky," he said. "Some charitable trust paid Kofi's fees. All 3 terms. Already done." "That is wonderful," she said. Her voice was steady. Her hands were not. "God is good," he said. "Yes," she agreed, very quietly. She had never felt so close to something, and so guilty at the same time. Then her brother Nana called. He had a contact, someone who sold information to journalists before they printed it. And the information was this. Victoria Osei Mensah had been photographed multiple times at a fishing village in the company of a local fisherman. Nothing inappropriate, just 2 people on a beach, but in the wrong hands, with the wrong caption, it would be enough. Nana came to the penthouse that evening. He sat across from her, like a man in a negotiation, not like a brother. "I need you to stop whatever this is," he said. "You are the face of this family. You have responsibilities." "I am a person," Victoria said. "You are also a CEO. You do not have the luxury of forgetting that." She told him to leave. He placed a journalist's number on her coffee table as he walked out, a quiet reminder of what he was capable of. She sat alone for a long time after he left. She looked at the number. She thought about Kwame, about the way he described the sea's mood, about the roughness of his hand when they shook hands that first time. She thought about how he ate less so his son could eat more. She called Adwoa. "I need to tell him," she said, "before someone else does." She arrived at the beach earlier than usual that next Saturday. The sky was still gray at the edges. The gulls were flying low. Kwame was not yet done with his nets when he saw her, and something in her face made him set the nets down. He sat beside her on the hull of his boat. She told him everything. She said it plainly, the way she had learned to deliver difficult news in boardrooms, clearly, without softening it so much that it lost its shape. The company, the money, the building she lived in, Emmanuel, the loneliness, the therapist's instruction, the reason she came to this beach and not another, the reason she had given him a nickname and never offered her real name. "I never lied to you about anything that matters," she said, "but I hid the parts that would have changed how you saw me, because I needed to be seen the way you saw me. I needed that more than I knew how to explain." Kwame was quiet. Then he said, Kofi's school fees. She closed her eyes. Yes. He stood up and walked to the water's edge, and stood there with his back to her. She let him. She did not follow. She sat on the boat hull, and watched the sea, and waited. She had learned patience here, after all. When he came back, he sat again. His face was hard to read. Not angry, but rearranging itself, like a man putting furniture back in a room that had been disrupted. Why are you telling me now? He asked. Because someone was about to print a photograph, and I wanted you to hear it from me. And if there was no photograph? She did not answer right away. I would have told you. I don't know exactly when, but I would have. He looked at the sea for a moment, then at her. You paid Kofi's fees, he said, softer this time. Not as an accusation anymore. More like he was simply making sure it was real. I did. Because you felt guilty, or because you wanted to help? She thought about it honestly. Both, but mostly because I wanted to help. He nodded slowly. He did not call for 8 days. She did not go to the beach. She sat in her penthouse, and she did not fix it with money, or lawyers, or press releases, or any of the tools she had used her whole career to resolve difficult situations. She just waited. It was the hardest thing she had done in years. On the 8th day, her phone rang. Unknown number. The sea is dark blue today, Kwame said, and the gulls are flying low. Her throat tightened. She is in a good mood, she said. Yes, he said. Come. What came after was not simple. This was not the kind of story where love fixes everything, and everyone lives comfortably ever after. Kwame was a proud man. He kept fishing. He did not move into her building. He did not accept things that would make him feel like a charity case. He said these things plainly, and she heard them plainly, and she agreed. He came to the city once. He wore his best clothes, which were modest and clean, and ironed carefully. She walked beside him into a restaurant where several people who knew her were sitting, and she held his hand at the table without hesitation. His hand was still rough. It still felt certain. Her brother made noise. She reminded him, quietly, that she owned the majority of the company and could restructure his entire division before noon on a weekday. He stopped making noise. The journalist never published anything. Adwa had handled it, carefully, through the right channels. What they built over the following year was not loud. A scholarship fund in Kokrabite, established through her company, that Kwame helped design, because he knew which families needed it, and why. More Saturdays, some Fridays too. Kofi, who had been suspicious of her at first, and then quietly impressed, and then eventually just comfortable. The way teenagers become comfortable around adults who do not try too hard. One morning, Kwame said to her, "You know what I realized?" "Tell me," she said. "You were never pretending to be ordinary. You were just remembering how." She looked at him for a long time. "Yes," she said, "that is exactly right." The city still saw Victoria Osei Mensah as the wealthiest woman in Accra. Her board still treated her with careful respect. The magazines still tracked her acquisitions and her outfits and her deals. But on Saturday mornings, she drove herself down a coastal road with the windows open. She sat on the hull of a wooden boat that smelled of salt and old rope and honest work. She drank tea from a roadside stall with 2 plastic cups. She listened to a man explain the mood of the sea by watching where the gulls flew. And Kwame Asante, who had never owned much, who had no title and no portfolio and no press coverage, looked at her with the exact same eyes he had always used. No awe, no agenda, no performance. Just a man who had chosen to know a woman, fully, and had decided she was worth knowing. That was the thing Victoria had spent her whole adult life building toward without realizing it. Not a bigger company, not a better title, not another acquisition. Just this. Just someone who stayed.